Okay, today we're going to look at some review statistics before we get too carried away in this unit. So today what we're going to look at is calculating the mean, median, and mode. So let's suppose we have 8 different math marks, so 54 to 84, we got all of those. So what we want to do is be able to do some summarizing of these marks to be able to figure things out. So the first one we're going to look at is range. And the range is basically just the spread of your marks. So we just go highest minus the lowest. So in this case, we'd have 84 minus 54, which is 30. So that means you would have a range of math marks of 30%. You went from 54 to 84, so you're somewhere within those 30% range. So that one's pretty easy. The mean is the average, so the mathematical average. So we can do this on our calculator by adding them all up. So you go 54 plus 59 plus 63 all the way down to 84. And then we divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 different marks. So we add them all up, divide by 8, and that would give us our average. So if we do that on our calculator, we get an answer of 67.75. So that means for this set of data, our mathematical average is 67. So your average, if this was a report card or something like that, your mark would be 67 or 68% if we round it up. Okay, the next one is median, and the median is the middle number. So as long as our data is arranged from lowest to highest, which it is, we would actually figure out which one is right in the middle. And in this case, because we have 8 of them, there is no middle number. So it's going to be halfway in between 71 and 64. So if we actually just go 71 plus 64, divide that by 2, that'll give us our median calculation, which in this case is 67.5. So it's pretty close to our mean, but just a touch lower. So our direct number right in the middle. So it's either if you had odd numbers, so let's suppose we had one more test that was 85, then in this case our median would be 71 because it would be the middle number. Okay, but if they're even numbers, you just have to average the two out. And our last one is mode, and the mode is the one that is most common. So which one happens the most? So in this case, for our math test, we only had one mark that repeated. We had 71 twice. So in that case, we'd say our mode is 71. So that's it for each of the 4 definitions. Typically, the range is important to us. We want to know sort of what our highest and lowest is. And then mean is our best one. That's our average. That's typically what we use as our best. The median, the middle, is pretty good, but sometimes it's not too accurate. And the mode is probably the one we're worried about the least. If, let's just kind of look at this, let's suppose we added one more mark. So let's suppose on your next math test, you got a 99. So all of a sudden we do that, we'd have to add these new numbers in there. Our range is way bigger. Our mean is going to be a lot larger, right? Once we add 99 and divide by 9, that'll raise our mean. But our median would now just be the middle number, which is 71. So it might not actually go up that much. So that's why quite often we don't use medians very much in terms of averages or calculations, because sometimes it's not going to be the accurate mark. Or vice versa, if you had, say, you got a 0 on an assignment, your average is going to go down, but the median might not change very much as well. So the 2 that we're going to use most often will be the mean and median, but we're going to figure out how we can do these on our calculator as well. So on your calculator, on a graphing calculator, there's an easy way to do this. You hit Stat, so find the Stat button, hit Stat, Edit comes up, choose that one, and then it gives you lists. So in list 1, what you want to do is you list all of the different marks. So under list 1, you put 54, 59, 63, and do all that all the way down to 84. And once you have your list entered, the next step is go to Stat again, but this time scroll over to Calc, and choose number 1, the 1 variable statistics, and hit enter, and that'll actually do all these calculations for you. So the very first one on the top of the list it has X with a line over it. That is our mean. So you can see we got 67.75, the same as we did before. Scroll down the list, a lot of those we don't need just yet. It gives you a minimum of 54, gives you a maximum of 84, which we already know anyway, so that would help us figure out the range if we wanted to. But it also gives you the median of 67.5. So the rest of the numbers that are on there you really don't need too much, but it does sort of help you kind of calculate the mean and median a lot easier than mathematically typing them all in. The other type of question you can get is what happens when, instead of it just being a list of marks, sometimes they give you it as a table. So let's suppose we do our math mark now again, but now we're going to write it as a frequency. So let's suppose out of the entire class, I want to track how many kids got between a 40 and 50, how many people got in the 50s, how many people got in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Okay, so let's suppose we have 2 people in the class that have that mark. Let's suppose we have 3 in this range, 5 in this range, let's say 7 here, 4, and 2. So in this case, we have the same sort of idea, except it just gives us sort of categories or ranges instead of just exact marks. So the first thing we can do is we can calculate the mean, median, mode, all those things once again, but we can also draw a graph. So our histogram graph in this case, you'll see a graph drawn, so we'd say 40 to 50, and we have 2 people. So we just draw it as a bar graph between 40 and 50. Then from 50 to 60, we have 3 people. From 60 to 70, we got 5 people. 80 to 90, we have 4. Oops, I messed up. 70 to 80 was 7 people. So that one was higher. And then 80 to 90 was the 4, and 90 to 100 was 2. So you can see we can get a histogram that shows that data pretty well as well. So we can see what the pattern is or what the trend is in a graphing form. On your calculator, when you want to do these calculations, we still do the same thing. Go to our stat, but this time we're going to have to enter list 1 and list 2. In list 1, when you enter these in, you can't put in the ranges. What we have to do is we just put the average in. We put the middle number in. So between 40 and 45, we'll say it averages out to 40 to 49 averages to 45. 50 to 59 will average to 55. 65, 75, 85, and 95. So what you want to do is enter those numbers in your list 1, then enter the frequencies in list 2, so 2, 3, 5, 7, 4, and 2. And then when we want to calculate it, so we still do stat calc, that part's the same. You still choose one variable, that part's the same. And then the only thing that's different is we have to tell the calculator to use both lists. So we use one variable stats. If you have an old calculator, you type in list 1, comma list 2. We don't need the brackets, I'm going to get rid of that. So you just have list 1, comma list 2 on your calculator. Or if you have the new one, it asks you which list to pick. So I'll kind of do both scenarios here so you can see which one you would get. Okay, so for list, make sure you have list 1 listed. And then for frequency, pick list 2. So to get list 2, just go second, number 2, hit calculate, and it'll type out one variable stats, list 1, list 2, and then it'll give you the answers. So our mean is 71.1 if we round it off, and our median is 75 in this case. Okay, so we could kind of see from our chart, if we're looking for where the middle number was, or the middle mark, it's likely going to be somewhere in this middle group. So you can see it is 75, and that would also be our mode, right? If we're asking what was the mode, we would look at which group is the biggest, which is the 70 to 79 group, which averages out to 75. So both of them are in that range. Okay, and that's it. So a couple different ways of doing these questions, whether you get a list where you had to enter in all the data or you have the frequency table, both will do the same thing. And we're done.